Hello beautiful people, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and today we're going to be comparing side by side three of the most beautifully compact smartphones you can bag right now, perfect for people with weirdly small hands like myself. And there is a big difference in the cost here. The Asus Zenfone 9 and the Xiaomi 12 both cost around 800 quid, so proper flagship territory, while Google's new Pixel 6a is half that price. So the question is, should you spend big, or will the Pixel 6a suffice? Well, I've used all three of these smartphones as my full-time handset, so let's get stuck into it, which is best for the camera tech, the game, and all that good stuff. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do plug subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Alright, so here we have the trio all lined up side by side. The Asus Zenfone 9 on the left, Google Pixel 6a Piggy in the middle, and the Xiaomi 12 over on the right. Now, as you can see there, the 5.9-inch Zenfone 9 is the most pleasingly miniature of the three. Quite a chunky monkey, but feels fantastic to clutch, and one-handed use is an absolute breeze. Though compared to the plethora of 6.5-inch plus smartphones in 2022, the Pixel and the Xiaomi are also really nice and comfy to clutch. About the same dimensions, despite the fact that the Xiaomi 12 has the bigger screen. That's because the Xiaomi's display actually stretches pretty much edge to edge. It's slightly curved on those left and right sides. Whereas you've got the fatter bezels surrounding the display here on the Pixel 6a. So it does make the Google smartphone look a little bit more budget, and also as far as the materials go, you've got Gorilla Glass Victus protection on the Zenfone and the Xiaomi 12, whereas the Pixel 6a makes do with the older Gorilla Glass 3. You do also get a pre-installed screen protector here on the Xiaomi 12, and thankfully none of those screens have scratched up just yet. If we flip them all around, the Xiaomi 12 is actually the only one of these three smartphones to sport a glass back. Although I've got to say, Google did a bang-up job with the Pixel 6a, because even though that back end is essentially just plastics, it does look and feel absolutely fantastic, just like the Pixel 6 flagships. So you've got that jazzy two-tone effect, and they've even made it so the camera chassis doesn't jut too far out of that arse end. However, that glossy rear end does get kind of greasy and smudgy after a while, thankfully masked quite well on this white model, whereas the Xiaomi 12 and the Zenfone 9 sport a matte finish. You've got some proper texture there, so both offer a good grip, and they're pretty decent at masking fingerprints unless you've just got stuck into some KFC bargain bucket or some other deep fried goodness. And all three mini mobiles are available in a small variety of colours, including some brighter options than the obligatory sort of whites and dark greys / blacks. As for water resistance, well, the Zenfone 9 comes with full IP68 water and dust resistance. The Pixel is actually really close behind with IP67, so both can get dropped into a sink or a bathtub or whatever and survive just fine. The Xiaomi 12, however, no official water resistance rating whatsoever, so dunk at your own peril. Now on the software side, all three are running Google's Android 12 OS in a obviously stock form here on Google's own blower. In the case of the Zenfone 9, it is rocking the Zen UI launcher on top, but it is a very light skin indeed. And last up, Xiaomi has chucked its own MIUI launcher onto the Xiaomi 12, which does change up things quite considerably, adds in a lot of extra bonus features and changes up all the settings menus and everything. And to actually unlock the smartphones, well, the Xiaomi 12 and the Pixel 6a both have an in-display optical fingerprint sensor, which works absolutely perfectly on both. It's as perfect as an in-display fingerprint sensor can ever be. Sometimes it takes a couple of taps, but only generally when your fingers are a bit gritty or moist. Whereas on the Asus Zenfone, it's actually got my preferred method, the edge-mounted fingerprint sensor, which works an absolute charm, super responsive, and rarely do you have to double tap. And this also supports Asus's Zen Touch feature, so for instance you can swipe down on that fingerprint sensor to drag down the notifications bar. You can also double tap that power button to bring up the app of your choosing, in my case the camera one. And that's one of the few bonus features that Asus has added onto the Zenfone on top of Android, along with a couple of other bits, including a dedicated gaming mode. You've got the ability to log into apps with two different accounts at the same time. A few little bits like that. Here on the Xiaomi 12, you've also got a dedicated gaming mode and just tons and tons of extra bonus bits that would take me far too long to go into, because bloody look at them all. You do have a dedicated one-handed mode on all three of these smartphones as well. Just swipe that bottom edge and down the screen pops. You can reach up to the top end, no worries. But of course, all three of these phones are compact, so it's not really strictly necessary, certainly here on the Zenfone. And I mentioned that the Zenfone 9 and the Xiaomi 12 have their own extra bonus features chucked on top of Android. Well, Google also has its own Pixel exclusive features that you won't find on these other two handsets. Stuff like the excellent call screening and that very handy at-a-glance widget. As for software support, well, Google offers the best package here. You've got 3 guaranteed Android OS updates, so Android 13, 14, and then 15 beyond that as well covered. And also 5 years of security updates, so proper good for the long haul. And Xiaomi is usually pretty bad at committing to software support, but actually the Xiaomi 12, they are committing to 3 years of Android OS updates, or same as the Google, and 4 years of security updates, really not far behind at all. Unfortunately, Asus is lagging far behind. The Zenfone 9 will be getting 2 Android OS updates and at least 2 years of software support, so that could be 4 years, 5 years, or it could be 2 years and a month, who even knows. As for the storage, well, the Zenfone and the Xiaomi 12, they both offer up to 256 gigs of UFS 3.1. Pixel 6a, it's also 3.1, but it is half the amount, just 128 gigs. And if it's expandable storage that you be craving, well, unfortunately you might as well stop watching this video then, because none of these phones offer micro SD memory card support. Can't boost that storage. Boo hiss. When it comes to the screen tech, there's not really much difference at all between these three. Absolute corkers, one and all. So you've got a 5.9-inch AMOLED on the Zenfone 9. The Pixel 6a sports a 6.1-inch OLED display. And then it's an almighty 6.28-inch AMOLED here on the Xiaomi 12. All three sport a Full HD Plus resolution, and because these are smaller panels compared with a lot of their big rivals these days, literally big rivals, that means gorgeously crisp visuals. Even if you stick your face right up to these things, good luck spotting any individual pixels. And because all three are OLED tech, you've got those nice wide viewing angles and nice punchy color reproduction as well, and sharp contrast as well. Really, really nice deep blacks because those pixels can just switch themselves off completely. So you have HDR streaming support on all three of these as well. A couple of other minor differences between them, such as the fact that the Xiaomi 12 screen is curved at the very edges there. Doesn't really have an impact on your media viewing experiences or anything like that though. And here on the Zenfone 9, that selfie cam orifice is tucked away in a corner, which I prefer to have it centrally positioned here on the Pixel 6a on the Xiaomi. But there is one big difference between them all, and that is the fact that you've got up to 120Hz refresh rate support here on the Zenfone 9 and the Xiaomi 12. Unfortunately, the Pixel 6a is stuck at 60Hz. There's no change in that. And as a result, when you are just flicking around Android or using supported apps, you will notice that it's not quite as silky smooth here on the Pixel compared with the other two. It certainly doesn't spoil the experience or anything like that, but when you are accustomed to 90Hz and 120Hz displays, which are pretty common these days on Android smartphones, and then you go back to this, it does just feel not quite as nice. And all three of these smartphones also pack a stereo speaker setup, absolutely respectable on all three of them, actually pretty decent on the Xiaomi 12 actually. I was impressed by that output. And the Bluetooth connectivity also fine and dandy on this trio, as you would expect, but only the Zenfone 9 actually rocks a headphone jack up top. A ruddy headphone jack, just when you thought they were all completely dead and extinct forever. You've got high-res audio support on all three, good bit of aptX support as well, and the Xiaomi 12 and the Asus Zenfone 9, because they've got a Snapdragon chipset packed in there, you've got Snapdragon sound support as well, so they support aptX adaptive, all that good stuff. Now don't be deceived by the fact that the Zenfone 9 is the smallest in this roundup, because it is also the beefiest, packing Qualcomm's fresh new Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chipset, backed by up to 16 gigs of DDR5 RAM. The Xiaomi sports the slightly older Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, backed by up to 12 gigs of DDR5 RAM, and the Pixel 6a rocks the Tensor chipset, which is co-crafted with Samsung, plus a mere 6 gigs of DDR5 RAM. Now for your everyday shares, all three of these will do the job absolutely fine. Apps load up nice and quick, and they tend to stay ticking around in the background as well, so when you tap them again, you're not having to wait for them to fully load up. However, Mr. Pixel here does have the unfortunate tendency to heat up, even when it's not particularly under duress. Just if you leave that screen on for a good while with a bit of the navigation running or something like that, it will start to get quite toasty. I haven't noticed that on the other two. They can get quite warm to the touch if you are gaming a lot on them or using the camera quite a lot as well, but not to the same sort of degree. You do have some capable coolant tech packed into the Zenfone and the Xiaomi smartphones. We're talking proper full-on vapor chambers, graphite sheeting, all of that good stuff. And absolutely no issues with either of those while gaming as well. Even the likes of Genshin Impact, bumped up to the maximum graphics settings, 60 frames per second, all that good stuff. They run absolutely beautifully, no worries whatsoever. You know, the occasional, maybe tiny little judder in the frame rate, but very, very rare, and it is a stunning experience through and through. As mentioned before, you've also got those dedicated gaming modes, which on the Zenfone in particular, very impressive stuff indeed. It's pretty much the same setup as what you get on their ROG phones, the dedicated Asus gaming handsets. Meanwhile, the Pixel 6a, sadly, very disappointing when it comes to gaming. Absolutely fine with stuff like Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG, the more basic stuff, but again, test it with the more demanding fare such as Genshin Impact, and you will start to notice some serious judders, some drops in the frame rates. It's still just about playable, but it's not a pleasurable experience. And while Google does offer a gaming mode technically here on the Pixel 6a, it is very basic compared with its rivals here. You got some notifications blocking, bit of screen recording, that's pretty much it. No issues with the connectivity on any of these blows though. You got 5G support, Wi-Fi 6E as well, so whether I was downloading stuff on my home network or streaming video out and about in the wild, worked an absolute charm on all of them. As for battery tech, well, the Zenfone sports a 4,300 mAh capacity battery, the Pixel slightly bigger at 4,410 mAh, and the Xiaomi is the winner with 4,500 mAh capacity. My primary concern when I come to review a compact smartphone is always the battery life, because for instance the Zenfone 8 last year, that battery life was balls, frankly, for want of a better word. Thankfully, all three of these absolutely smash it out of the park. You'll last a full day on a single charge, no worries whatsoever. But I've got to say my favourite of the bunch is definitely the Zenfone. Despite the fact it's the dinkiest, it's got the smallest capacity battery as well, it's got the best staying power of the bunch as well, probably helped along by the fact it's got that Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chipset. And seriously, most days I ended with at least sort of 20 to 25% charge remaining, even with 6 or 7 hours of screen on time, good bit of camera play, plenty of video streaming, audio streaming in the background when the screen was off even. I swear this thing is like Michael friggin Myers, you just can't bloody kill it. That said, unfortunately the Zenfone 9 and the Pixel 6a are pretty slow at recharging when you do happen to plug them in. The Xiaomi 12 supports 67 watt fast wired charging, so definitely heads and shoulders above the other two, and you've also got wireless charging support with this bad boy, unlike the others. So let's finish with a squint at the camera tech, and the Asus Zenfone 9 sports a 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 sensor with 6-axis hybrid gimbal stabilization. Ooh, fancy. The Xiaomi sports the same sensor without that stabilization tech, and the Google Pixel 6a uses the old Pixel 5a technology, a 12.2 meg primary sensor. On the Pixel 6a, they're definitely going for a point-and-shoot style experience. You've got a few little bonus modes, including a portrait mode and a night sight mode, but that's pretty much it. The Zenfone 9 also doesn't go too crazy with its bonus stuff, got a couple of extra bits like the light trail mode and stuff like that. And you do have a dedicated pro mode on this and also the Xiaomi 12 if you want to dive in there and play around with the white balance, the ISO level, shutter speed, etc. But if bonus camera modes really are your thing, the Xiaomi 12 is really going to float your boat because it's got absolutely bugger tons of stuff tucked away in there. The Zenfone 9 can capture some impressively fine detail even in strong HDR style situations, which the other pair can't quite match, although it does also boost those colours a bit, while the Pixel and the Xiaomi offer more natural looking hues in comparison. And that especially goes for the Pixel, which pumps out photos that are very close to what you'll see with your peepers. Still, all three definitely do a great job in daylight, ambient light and softer light too, so it all just comes down to personal preference on those colours. Human subjects are also well captured, with a dependable portrait mode offering that lovely bokeh style background blurring on all three. And in very low light, you've got a night mode to brighten up your shot. The Zenfone's focus proved to be the most accurate in these scenarios, but the Pixel also impresses considering this is older tech. And you've also got an ultra wide angle shooter on all three of these blowers as well. It's a 12 megapixel effort on the Zenfone and the Pixel. On the Xiaomi, that's upgraded to 13 megapixels. Ooh. And yeah, it is good to have that added flexibility that an ultra wide angle shooter offers, although quite often the colors aren't quite as naturally reproduced, and in low light they can suffer a little bit. The Pixel actually does a pretty good job in this regard. And then here on the Xiaomi, you do have a dedicated macro mode as well for some super up close and personal shots if that's your bag. For your video shenanigans, all three of these smartphones can shoot 4K resolution footage, and the Zenfone 9 and the Xiaomi 12 can also bump that all the way up to 8K resolution at 24 frames per second if you've got an 8K TV and you really want to capture your cat licking its own arse in that glorious ultra resolution. And while the Zenfone and the Xiaomi 12 use the same IMX766 camera sensor, I have noticed that the color tones tend to be much richer and more artificial on the Zenfone when you are shooting video compared with the other two, so maybe bear that in mind. As for the selfie snapper, well, it's a 12 megapixel here on the Zenfone 9, a 32 megapixel here on the Xiaomi 12, whereas it is a more basic 8 meg snapper here on the Pixel 6a. And my favourite selfie shooter here was the Zenfone, which comes beautifully with dodgy lighting, although once again it does pump up those colours, while the Xiaomi is in last place, struggling a little in those less than perfect conditions. And that right there, my lovelies, is my full side-by-side comparison of the Asus Zenfone 9, the Google Pixel 6a and that Xiaomi 12. So Which one are you most tempted by? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Do check out my full in-depth reviews of the Xiaomi 12 and that Asus Zenfone 9, which are live right now. The Pixel 6a one is incoming, but you've got my unboxing and 3-day review if you fancy a bit of that. And for more of the latest and greatest tech, please do plug subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a bloody wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.